I want to make a video, show off what I got for a mobile tool case. It's a Ridgeline, which is some knockoff brand of, I'm not sure who makes it, probably something Chinese, but it is it's the exact same size as a Pelican 1600. Only the Pelican 1600 does not have the wheels or the handle, and the Pelican storm cases have that kind of a handle set up. Very rugged, the wheels are very rugged, they clear the ground very nicely, which unlike most Pelican cases where you're always kind of dragging the lower edge just a little bit. Handle goes up and down. There's a slot in the handle right here for where you can cut away those two notches if you wanted, and you could actually make this have a shorter thing. I don't know what the advantage of that is, unless maybe you are a very short person, but it's possible. Got a nice rugged handle, which I don't know if I ever really carry it by that. This is basically your lifting handle for putting it in a vehicle or whatever. And there's no handle on the other end, so when I go to lift it, I kind of got to put my hand underneath the latch assembly. But otherwise it works. It's rugged, good quality rugged hinges. I've been using it for a month or two now. Believe it or not, Ocean State Job Lot had it for $100. Had it ordered to the store, and then they gave me a $30 gift card, so it only cost me $70. I have not seen it on their website since, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. So it's got 4 latches, 1, 2, 3, 4. As I said, I do AOG aircraft maintenance, so kind of need a little bit of everything because we don't work for one particular company, we work on everybody, and some of this stuff is kind of more specialized to one type of aircraft or another. Just to give you an idea though, I like these heart pouches for being able to see through, and the way I modified them, they have nice handles for holding these grommets, even for attaching stuff if you wanted to, or even you could put a lock through the grommet and that there. I used a snap kit to attach Velcro pretty much permanently to the back of this, and different pouches have different things. Got my ear protection, extra pen, you always need that, screwdriver bits. There's a million different types of screws, screw heads that they use on aircraft, and you always have to have extras because you're going to break them and strip them, whatever. This is all cotter pins. You never know what you're going to need for an aircraft, so I've got a million different types just in case when I'm working on whatever. Combination ignition wrenches, just nice and small. I like them in a pouch, it's just easier to deal with, and of course spare batteries for the flashlight. Now where you locate stuff on the lid has a bearing on where items are actually in your case, so when it's closed things can't fall out of the foam. Like these large drills that aren't really seated down in very well would fall out fairly easily. Same thing with a heavy battery and a chuck. If you'll notice, these pouches stick down further, but with just a little bit of a push it'll latch, as long as I've got everything tucked in like I don't right there. Got my handles, these are webbing that I bought and fit into that, I'll show that in a minute, but it fits down and latches. And you want that kind of a tight fit so stuff isn't rattling around and falling loose and falling out as you jostle it and bump it, knock it over stairs and whatever. Got a couple different sizes of safety wire. That right there is all drill bits, step drill, things like that. Battery charger for my drill. My 1/4 inch sockets, the extensions, the rails, everything goes in a pouch. Aircraft mechanic, that's probably the thing I'm going to be using more than anything as a tool. I want it very easy to go to. And then I do a lot of electrical work, so that is my multimeter and test leads is in a nice solid case. also Velcroed. Everything that top this lid here, I just have the hook side of Velcro stuck to, so whatever I want to stick, it sticks, it stays. It's a nice thing about that. Knee pads, just got to tie it into the handle here so when I open the box in the wind it doesn't blow away. And then same thing, aircraft mechanic, probably the first tool I'm going to. If it's not 1/4 inch sockets and ratchets, it's screwdrivers. So I got all my screwdrivers laid out right on top. Snoopy tool, because you wouldn't believe how many things have a coin slot head, and this is a perfect tool for that. Always have one of them. Right angle screwdrivers, picks, headlamp, need that. Wouldn't believe how handy that is. Just a paint can removal tool, but for getting underneath pieces of trim and getting radios loose out of their trays. You just never know what you're going to need it for, and there aren't many tools that come that shape and have a nice strong lip to them, so always want to have one of them. Broken off punch, believe it or not, or pick, really good for turning turnbuckles and other things you may have to stick something into to turn. Of course, my Allen wrenches, aircraft mechanic again, and an oil can hole opener, because it opens a nice larger slot, which is nicer than a slotted screwdriver. Charger, this is actually a headlamp that doesn't use batteries, like the spare one does, but this one actually recharges with a USB underneath the rubber right there. So I always carry a cable to recharge it. I'm normally driving a van to wherever I'm working, so there's USB ports in the van I can recharge off of. For the adapters, these are for the right angle screwdriver set here. I have those. This right here is one of my screwdriver tools used the most, because I like the leverage but not the depth. And so then with one of these, you never know when you're opening cowlings on a lot of these aircraft. Half are going to be slotted, half are going to be Phillips. So this different lengths, and I can swap the end. It's got a Phillips bit on the other end, like that. So I can go back and forth very easily. And I can go in like that. Nice ratcheting screwdriver, because there's sometimes a drill just won't do it. And this one is nice because it has a flashlight built into it. It also has this neat trick where you push this and you rotate the handle, and now you've got extra leverage getting on screws. Another odd tool, but car mechanics, you might use this. Airplane mechanics, you will use it on jets all the time. They want to know their tread depths. This right here gives it to you in 16ths, 30 seconds in metric, I believe. And it'll tell you how much is left, because you'll often have to write that on the routine inspections that happen like weekly or so many days at a time. So another thing that I have in here is these little storage containers. I'm not sure how many ounces they are. I bought them as a set of 3. I got all 3 of them right there. But they have lids that unscrew. You can see here, and got an extra flashlight tucked inside. I like the fact that these screw on, so that I know that they will be tight and won't just pop open. I've got the flashlight there. I've got another one here with this is all my electrical connectors, crimp type ones. Just have a large variety, but definitely something I need to carry with me, because you never know how often you're going to need one of those to change something. This I haven't decided what goes in it next, but I know that I want it, and I will find something that fits there eventually. I also do a lot of avionics work, so this is a 3/32 T-handle Allen wrench, and it is so much easier to use than using the one out of there. Be able to take radios in and out of trays like the Garmin's and King and things like that. Because I work on stuff that still has some Stone Age stuff to it. A lot of smaller, really fine tip screwdrivers here as well. Really, really small straight slots. quite often you have set screws or on knobs, throttle knobs, friction knobs, things like that. And sometimes an Allen wrench is not what they use, but instead they use a slotted head. And then smaller Phillips in different sizes here, going down to like I'm not sure what this even is actually, but really small, like the decimal size, below 0 size tips. That is just a regular number 1, and I have a regular fat-headed one too, but sometimes you need something longer and skinnier, easier to get in. Regular number 2 Phillips, different size slotted screwdrivers, because on some aircraft you find they give you don't want any flare on the side of the tip, because the hole you have to go through, I think of floorboards, some aircraft, you have to go down through a small hole to get to like a quarter turn type fastener, or access covers on avionics type electrical stuff. You need a straight screwdriver like that. Sometimes you need fairly long too. And then what I've added when I did the Kaizen foam, to be able to lift these out without having to cut anything like a grip to stick my hand through, I just ran some of this webbing, cut a slot right through the webbing, or through the foam. And this is a continuous loop. It's joined at one end. I'll show you how I did that underneath. And these just lift out, and when they're not needed, they fold down out of the way and just sit there, so they don't cause any problems. And knee pads, because I'm old, and when I got to kneel under an airplane, especially if it's wet, or there's fuel or hydraulic fluid or who knows what on the ramp, it's really nice to not stick your knee right in it, and my knees will start killing me after a while if I don't protect them some. And also stubby number 1, because you never know. I've run into times where I really needed that. Stubby number 2, and then straight slot. These all go into this ratcheting right angle screwdriver handle. I think this was an old Craftsman kit or something like that, but it is really nice because it ratchets one way, it won't go the other way. If you need to reverse it, you just pop it out, stick it in the other way, and it'll work. And sometimes that's what I need as opposed to this, but like I said, this right here, it's like snap-on 1/4-inch ratchet, but they put a bit holder in it. It's magnetic, so it holds. And quite often, pulling interiors and things like that, this is my go-to. So I always have a second one just for my road kit. Another thing I have up on here, didn't show you what was inside of this pouch. This is another one I've done the Velcro on. This one I actually used a stud kit from Fabric. You have to hammer it together. It works. I like the snap kits better. As you can see, I got a bunch of tie wraps inside of there because I'm a tie wrap specialist. I even have a sticker somewhere to prove it. Safety glasses. Always going to need those. Gloves. Never want to go without latex gloves, especially if you're working on toilets. ESD wrist strap. Dealing with avionics, like I just changed a control unit yesterday in a jet. You always got to ground yourself. This right here is a strap that wraps around your wrist, like so. And there's a metal plate underneath that snap part right there to get this nice long flex cord. And obviously this is plastic, but if I was actually working on the aircraft, I would want to ground it onto something metal, like a seat rail, avionics rack, screw, anything like that that is screwed into the actual frame of the aircraft. That will keep me grounded, and I won't induce charges, because especially when you're dealing with modern avionics with the little like cards that slide in and out of a socket, they're all microcomputer stuff, and a slight voltage from static from rubbing your leg against something while you're working, you can fry the card and undo all the work you just did. Next is a whole pouch full of earplugs. I do have the nice neckband style ones, and that's what I will wear, but I escort a lot of people as part of my job, and not every airport has a dispenser at the FBO of these. So I have a whole bunch of earplugs, different styles. They're straps, they're just the kind that go in your ear, and this way I can give them some. And if they take them and use them, they don't want to, obviously I don't want it back when they're dirty, so I have a bunch. Always good to have extras. Sharpies, razor blades, brand new, packaged in paper so they don't get rusty. You wouldn't believe this is a more large tip one. This is a very fine tip one. They both have their use, and it's better to have it and not need it, need it and not have it. Just to show you some of the Velcro, I just had to cut away these little standoffs for things you can screw inside, but just strips of the 2-inch industrial, and it holds up anything I need it to. So, whenever I gotta go inside, take these straps, lift them off, and just show you how I did it underneath here. Straps run down both sides, and then I just did another snap and punched it here into the right through the strap to hold the ends together. Makes a continuous loop and supports it. This is what I was talking about when you don't want stuff falling off and you lift it up. Which is why this lid stuff has to fit down nice and tight. So then we get to the wrench level. Now I do also have speed handle here, and this is a ratcheting tip and adapter. Screwdriver bits, I can change whatever I want in there. Fits right on the end here. You wouldn't believe how many times you need this for breaking screws loose that are really stubborn. And if you strip any out, easy outs. This is the ones that they're supposed to drill, but they have this cone shape to them that screws into. Now I usually will just use a number 30 drill bit, or a number, I think a 40 for the number 1, number 30 for the number 2. This is the grab it, which is better quality than, there's some other type that's sold at like Home Depot. I don't think they work as well, but these grab its I've used for years. They work really well for stripped out heads, getting screws out. And I'll save this for when I don't have time to get a drill out, the actual correct size drill bit, but normally I'll drill the number 30 or number 40 first, and then just chuck this in and use that to get it out. But I always want to have that when I'm on the road. Stuck screws, you wouldn't believe how many times somebody thinks that they can get it back in and it's good, they'll leave it because they don't have the hardware either. Tape measure, razor knife is just where they fit. Long handle, double-ended pick. Nice thing with picks, you can fit the tip so it goes down into the foam in a socket like that. Stubbies, they ratchet very small. This also works with screwdriver bits for when I need it to. Spare flashlight, just because. Now one of the things I found when doing my wrenches, this is actually an old set of snap-ons. I've had these as long as I've been in aircraft. Actually, I got them before I was an airplane man. Graduation present my parents got me from high school. Oh, another oil can opener here. It fit in, so I brought it. I found when I was laying out my wrenches, if you switch the heads and tails, open end and close end on them, they will fit tighter together, which with this Kaizen foam, you've only got so much, and this gives you the most fit for it. Now some of these are a little tight together, but you know what? I'm not really worried. It works. It holds them all in place. I don't have to worry. I used to always use a wrench roll, but I like the way this is set up. Once again, have these straps. It makes it real easy to lift out. Not a paracord, but I like the way the webbing, it runs underneath here. Gives it a nice support because this foam is really flexible. And as you can see, I messed up when I first did this. So I glued pieces in with spray adhesive, and it actually sticks really well, but it's wicked flexible. So this right here gives it the support when I lift stuff. On the pliers level, now I got a couple different sizes of forceps. These right here come from the automotive, but if you ever got to pop a rubber line off, like I said, I work on piston planes as well as jets and airliners, and sometimes a hose will not come off a nipple. This right here will pop it off, wedge it over, squeeze it, and it pops off. Not always going to need it, but when I do, it's worth its weight. Valve stem tool, feeler gauge for shims, and a couple different plastic scrapers. The colors indicate that they're a different material. Basically, if you gotta get adhesive off a window or a window frame, this won't chew it up, but it will be very good at removing sealant or whatever. Long forceps, lifesaver when you get tiny little screws you gotta get in. Wire stripper, now this is one that, if you notice, if you can read that, goes all the way down to a number 30 wire. These are worn, I use them many years now. I do a lot of wiring, but you know, micro switches and things like that, especially Cessna in particular likes to use much smaller wires in gauge than others, it seems. Most use like a 22, but I've seen up to I think a 40 on one installation that I was doing. This will almost get it. At 40 you have to use something different, and I have another box of avionics stuff if I know I'm going to be involved in that. These right here are the more normal ones. They also have crimper in them. Blue Point, I like them. You can probably buy something cheaper from an automotive store or whatever, and it'll do the same job, or Klein or something like that. But these are what I like, and use them many times. Duckbills, bending aluminum when you got dents to work out, edges that are crimped, things you got to fold back. These right here, that's what you use. You want to spread out where you're working. Scissors, you're always going to need them. Reversible safety wire pliers, Snap-on is worth the money. And then tie wrap cutters, because everybody will want to kill you if you leave the tail, you cut it with a regular pair of dikes like those, and you don't cut them off flush. These are flush cuts. You look at the bottom, look at the shape of the jaw. They will leave a flush stem that won't chop anybody when they rub their wrist or the back of their hand or whatever, even hit their head on it when it's wrapped around a bundle and you cut it off flush with the secure, the latching part of the tie wrap. Always need those. Needle nose, yes, you do need those. Cannon plug pliers, I bought the knipex ones. I think I've used them once, but when you need them, you need them. Cutting and pulling and twisting and reaching to do safety wire, for doing cutting safety wire exactly where you want it, pulling cotter pins and twisting them, cutting the ends. Nothing beats these Snap-on ones with a really fine head. If you do a lot of wheel bearing and, you know, changing wheels, the big cotter pins that some aircraft, usually medium-sized aircraft, use, they're about yay long and they're fat. These might struggle a little bit, but that extra leverage and the small head getting into an area, you can't beat it, especially for safety wire work. If you're working on engines, especially turbine engines where there's a lot of little safeties, like Pratt & Whitney is one I've done a lot on PT6s. And then knipexes. I've got 4 different sizes, and I really thought I could get away with 3, but then I discovered sometimes you just need that 4th. These, the large ones here, you can crush small AM3 rivets if you get a small sheet metal repair to do that's near an edge reinforcement or something like that. They give you that much leverage. But all of these right here, the smallest, actually they make one smaller size, but I don't have it. I'm not sure it'll be that useful, but these right here for getting the B-nut off, that holds like switches or circuit breakers. If it's the star-shaped type, absolutely you want it, and I've used them many times for things like that. So absolutely, and it's nice that they can open fairly large. What does it say on here? Oh, these don't, do they? Maybe they do. Some of them actually tell you how large they open. I think the other size does. And they actually get quite a spread to the jaw from such a little tool. And then the leverage, because there's a mechanical advantage built in right there. You just can't beat them. Every mechanic should have them. If you don't have a pair, I would recommend starting with these or these. You can find a knockoff pair of this at Harbor Freight. I haven't bought one yet, but I don't see why they wouldn't work. I prefer to support Knipex just because it's quality tools and I don't want them going out of business. And then micro needle nose, same thing. I do a lot of electrical work and like starting screws on the back of a circuit breaker, micro switch soldering, and screws that hold them in place. you never know when you're going to need it, and it is better to have it. Remember, all these things do add weight, but forceps, though, mechanic's best friend. Little cotter pins, little clevis pins, fishing safety wire through the corner of whatever, getting it into tiny little holes. You always, always, always need that. And then my bottom layer, Ford wrench. I've had one time it really absolutely saved the day, so I'll carry it. I don't use it that often. I think this one actually came from my grandfather, but it is incredibly useful. This is a micro set of files. I work on King Airs, and before that I worked at a place that had a fleet of similar turboprop type aircraft, and you never know when you're going to have to file color blade or whatever. It has some screwdriver bits. I don't think I've ever used them, but the files, absolutely worth it. I don't use my 3/8 sockets hardly ever. That's why they're buried here in the bottom. I just got them all on a rail. It's a Craftsman, I think. Yeah, old Craftsman stuff. These Pittsburgh ratchets, though, absolutely worth the swivel head. They're made in Taiwan. These days, Taiwan makes some pretty good tools. But that swivel head, rather than a flex head, because you're still keeping the force you're putting on the handle right on the center of the head. You can go straight like a screwdriver like that. You can switch it to any angle. You can even use it on a, let's say, almost a reverse angle like that. Sometimes you need that kind of access where you're down and pushing on the top of something. Absolutely worth the money. Not that expensive. If you buy Tecton, you're going to get the exact same thing with a red handle. I have it in a 1/4 inch as well. This is another Harbor Freight special. It's the tips unscrew. You rarely will need a hammer as an aircraft mechanic, and it's nice to have different heads, different hardnesses, more plasticky, more rubbery, that you can switch out. And it does have one metallized one for, you might want that, but like I said, don't use it that often. Speed tape. You will use this. You're going to put it over PRC that hasn't cured. You're going to put it over the edge of panels that won't stay down. You're going to put it over lightning damage from lightning strikes. Sometimes even paint that's eroded. I can't even think of all the places I've used speed tape over 30 years. And finding a place for a big fat roll, not so good. This one I've carried for many years. As you can see, it's gotten a little mushed and flattened out. Fits in there quite nice. Crow's feet, don't need them that often, but hey, it's good to have when you do need them. And just got a few things here. Hacksaw. I don't carry a big full-size one. I guess this is Walmart Heart. I know people will laugh at that. I'll usually get a better blade from Snap-on or something to go in it, but these are the kind that you want. And I also have a couple other tips that will cut wood, almost like hacksaw type blades, and it'll all go in there. Like I said, I've done a lot of PT6 work. Anybody who knows the fuel nozzles, this is how you knock the little tubes between the fuel nozzles into place and out of place. Got this from a place that I used to do business with, but absolutely have to have it. Always need a mirror, always need a magnet. There's the other blades right there. There's one for drywall, there's one for wood and plastic. When you need it, you need it. It might even be something as stupid as opening up a crate that some part of the aircraft was shipped in, like a leading edge or landing gear or something dumb like that. Set of punches. This right here is the punch that I used in cutting out all this foam when I was using the soldering iron, variable temperature soldering iron. And unfortunately, I stuck it in here before it was really cold enough. And that's what it did to the foam, just from the heat. It melted it, but I still think that's the best way to do it. Different size adapters. I can go all the way up to, what is that, 3/4 for like wheel bearing, or down for torque wrenches and whatever, because quite often they have large sockets that you're going to need, and maybe your ratchet is just your 3/8 or your torque wrench is just a 3/8. So it's always nice to have a set of adapters, and I'm not sure, I think those are cheap ones from Harbor Freight. I have a few Craftsman ones as well, just to go between, you know, 1/4 inch to 3/8 to 1/2 inch, and going from 3/8 up to, I think, 1/4 inch, yeah, 3/8, I don't know, whatever. They go up and down different sizes. You never know what you're going to need. Better to have it. Nice long extension in case I need that. And then, as I said, most used tool probably ever, 1/4 inch ratchet. Same thing, hard pouch studs, hold the stealth stick Velcro on, because it won't stay stealth stuck forever. So do that. This is actually the Craftsman ratchet I bought back in the 90s, if I remember. This has been warranted maybe once, maybe twice. And literally I have Pittsburgh in the exact same thing. The only difference is the handle. I also have Cobalt. Believe it or not, apparently these are all made by the same guy who has the patent for that, or the license to produce, or whatever it is, for these rotating ratchet style ones. And you can't beat it. It's the tool that I used to use every day, all the time. That's how I've worn all the lettering off and stuff like that. It's been beat, it's been abused. I've torqued way beyond probably what I should have. Even had cheater handles, you know, pipes over here. And like I said, I've warrantied it a couple times from wearing it out. What happens is the head starts to get loose and flop around when you have a socket on it. And take it to the Snap-on guy, get another one. Usually I don't think they repack the guts on these. I think they just give you another one. But I use the Pittsburgh actually in my main toolbox because I like the feel of the handle just a little bit better. But this is what my Roadman is. Now these right here, cheap Craftsman sockets from back when Craftsman was sold at Sears, if you remember that place. This is a hyper tough socket rail, which you might laugh, but I like them better than anything else because they hold very securely. The sockets are not falling off of here. This is a rail I had to cut to length. Originally it was longer than the pouch, and I only need that many, so I cut that much. I took off whatever I need. This is just a regular, I don't know what this is, 3/32 or something. What does that say? Yeah, 3/32 all the way up to 9/16. That's what you're going to need. 12 point, you absolutely have to have in aviation. You're going to run into it on wheel bolts. You're going to run into it on a brake hardware. You're going to run into it on engine hardware. It's something in aviation that you will run into all the time, and if you don't have one, you'll be stuck. A couple of guys I work with were on a trip and didn't have it for whatever reason, and guess what? You can't find them in stores. They had to buy this massive set at Harbor Freight. And this was after looking at Home Depot and Lowe's, and there's Sears, obviously. I think an automotive store or whatever. Nobody had 1/4 inch 12 point in stock except for Harbor Freight in like a $300 set. That's what they had to buy. Because when you're on the road, you got to get it done. I have this as a backup in case I need a second one, building up tires or whatever. Don't normally ever probably going to need it, but it's better to have it. Different size extensions. This right here, this is a 5/32, really, really deep. I don't know where, I probably got this off of Amazon, but you're going to find some manufacturers using these for like little teeny tiny electrical assemblies, and you need it in that length to get down past the assembly to the microscopic little nut that's at the bottom. So I bought this, I want to say the last time I used it was on a Dash 8, but you will run into these if they're out there. It's always good to have that extra long depth just to get down in there, because once again, you're never going to find this in a store. Next to impossible. The Snap-on guy, you'll probably have to special order it, but online you can find them. Get one in ahead of time. And yeah, that's my 1/4 inch ratchet set. Like I said, I like it in a pouch. I can just grab the pouch, take it with me. I have all my sockets right there when I need them. and you will need them. After a Phillips screwdriver, it's probably the second most used tool you're ever going to reach for. And then just a few other things, like I mentioned, I have drills. Now I have a drill, a screwdriver type one here that is just for driving screws. Now I use this old Nikita set. They only had them at Home Depot for a short time, a long time ago. Now they've gone to a 12 volt. This was what they called their 10.8, which they're 12 volt when you take them off the charger. I found them on Amazon. They were sold more in other countries for whatever reason. I don't know why they got rid of them, because the form factor, meaning how small this is, how thin the head is, how little there is hanging out around here in aircraft, that's priceless when you got to reach inside of some hole and get to the screws down around the rudder pedals, or underneath an instrument panel, or back behind a seat. You don't want a big bulky 18 volt drill. You don't want even a lot of the 12 volts with a square battery pack down here. That's going to hang you up getting into holes. These nice small form factor, which most manufacturers, I know there's a few that still actually use, almost Harbor Freight sells one like this. I don't know if I'd recommend that. Bosch, Lowe's has this, almost the same thing. Milwaukee actually uses this basic setup. It has 3 cells inside that look sort of like a double A but fat, almost like a C cell. But these right here, they're, like I said, they're 12 volt. You take them off. I've beat these things forever. I've actually got 3 sets of them, and they work. But this size, this form factor, like I said, Milwaukee has it, but the Milwaukee one is chunky, and it has extra like bit holders and stuff on the outside. It would probably work just fine. The lithium batteries in the cold you absolutely want, and then an impact, because when you're taking them loose, it's really nice to have that extra, torque beating on the screw to help you rip it off, or shatter your bit and strip the head out of the screw. That's the other thing that happens too. These have the nice little light there underneath, right there by the trigger, which helps you when you're working in the dark. And this was my set for home, so it's got sealant and whatever else. I use other stuff now at home. But the nice thing, this doubles as a drill, because this chucks in the impact, and then I can put my drill bits in here. So it's nice to have, as opposed to, they do make it with a head for a chuck. I don't need that, and this is much lower profile. I'll always use either one of them. Screw extension. This is one that doesn't let go of the bits very easily because it has a snap ring inside rather than a magnet, and I always look for that when I buy screw extensions. But that right there, that's the way I prefer to use it. Rarely ever will have a bit chucked right in here, because it's nice to be able to see the tip, and it's not too long, gives you plenty of control. And just like that, I use, if you can see on these screwdriver bits, I don't know if it's possible getting close enough, but they have little teeny tiny ribs that go crosswise across the tip. Almost impossible to find. I think Snap-on might still make them, but I'm not paying the $4 or $5 a bit, whatever they sell them for. These were Bosch for years. Bosch doesn't do it anymore, but now I have found some others that they have like a black iron treatment. I don't know what it is exactly, but it helps grip the inside of the head of the screw and helps you not to strip, and gives you a good grip with breaking screws loose like that. Steel rule, gonna need that on corporate jets, measuring the wear pin on the back of the brake, because they're going to want to know that when you do your inspection of, usually like a weekly or 3-day or whatever inspection on corporate jets, and they're going to want to know the wear on their tires and the wear on their brakes. So there you go. Good headlamp, invaluable, as I said. Can never say enough. You need light all the time. That right there is probably more than most people need. Most people get by with a smaller case, but as I said, we work on many different types of aircraft and do mobile. This is what we